Cool.
I'm free to talk now.
Don't be afraid. All right, so we're getting started. Listeners, very, very excited to introduce a long time best friend of mine. We met in college. We're in a friend group called The Harbor because friendship's the best ship, as corny as it is. We've got Chelsea. We've got Chelsea on today. Let's give her a round of applause.
Hey, hey. Happy to be here.
So, Chelsea, again, very, very happy to have you here. Is there anything you'd like the fans to know about who you are? Any context, or before we kind of jump into things? Who are you? Why do we care that you're on today?
Well, because I'm cool. I don't know. We've been friends. I'm trying to think of when it was. It was probably 2013 or 2014. We're probably going on like 11 years.
Crazy.
That is crazy.
Exhausting.
Wow. Not because of our friendship.
No, just because that's a long time to live, let alone a friend. But I'm really
a lot of personal growth and change and development, and the music we were listening to 10, 11, 12 years ago to now.
Well, that's a great segue because we are talking about music today. So for those who are like, music, all right, see yourselves out. For the other folks who like music, yeah, pull up a chair, B, because we going in. So the first question to you, Chelsea, is I kind of know the rhythm I get into when I start to get obsessed with an artist or a song and an album of what that really looks like. Would love to kind of hear from you what that process looks like when you hear of an artist and realize, oh my God, wait, I love them. How do you engage, and what's that like for you?
Yeah, it's definitely changed over the past few years. I feel like I used to be like music was a hobby, like it was my mission to find like the next upcoming artist and like be the fan like super early, and like that was a big part of my like hobby personality. I don't know. I really liked being that person. And then I feel like over the past few years, like just other things have been taking up time. And now I rely really heavily on Spotify playlists, either just like going off of a vibe that I want. Love their new daylist feature of like guessing what mood I'm in at different parts of the day. And just like gathering like what have I been listening to? Here's what we think you'll like. And then that's really how I've been finding new artists. When people recommend me new music, I'm like, yeah, okay, you don't know me. And then inevitably, like within 2, 3 months, I'll come up on that artist like some other way. And I'm like, wow, I really like this artist. And that friend is like, what the hell? Like, I told you about them. So I do need to work on my trust issues with recommendations, but I feel like I do trust Spotify a lot. And then once I hear an artist or like a song on one of those playlists, I'll do like a little mini deep dive of like listening to whatever their like top 5 songs, whatever, maybe listen to an album in the background. And then some just like fizzle out from there. And some of them it'll be like a constant rotation for like a few months. And then maybe it'll be like Janelle Monáe or Haley Kiyoko, which becomes a lifelong obsession. So it's just, gotta roll with it.
No, I feel you on that, especially in terms of the really hoping the recommendations you get align with your taste. I feel like for me, I've come across good artists from a couple podcasts I listen to where they'll mention someone and I kind of know who on the podcast who has a taste that I like. And I'm like, okay, I'll probably like that song because of songs they've recommended before. Honestly, TikTok has put me on to so many things. So I got to give TikTok credit where she's due. And typically what happens is I come across someone and then I find one track that I'm really into. I listen to it incessantly. Daniel, my husband, can vouch for me when I say if I like a song, I will listen to it 5 times in order. Sometimes I'll listen to the singing, or I'll just listen for the lyrics, or I'll just like the whole point is to fully immerse myself to the point where it's obnoxious. And he's like, are you playing it again? I'm like, yeah, I am. So leave the room or like get on board. So for me, another way I can kind of get into music is, do you ever watch like festivals online if they have a live stream?
We'll say not really, but for the first time, South by Southwest has clips of their music on like my like local PBS channel, which I recently subscribed to. So like their app, the GBH, has like a South by Southwest thing. And I just recently started putting that on in the background, like on the TV while I'm like doing other things. But usually no, I'm not usually streaming.
I feel like until COVID, I don't even know if it was a thing before, but that we started live streaming Coachella what would have happened there, mostly because I had FOMO because it was only 2.5 hours away when I lived in LA. I was like, why am I not going? But I would get stressed. So anyway, this year we live streamed Coachella. And all I remember is I was, waiting for Victoria Monet and some others to come through who I already knew. But I'm like, oh, it's Coachella. We'll probably see other people who are interesting. And all of a sudden, we just changed the channel. There's like a flamboyantly dressed person on stage. Looks like they're in drag, so I couldn't tell. I was like, is that a woman? Is that a man? I'm not sure. They're in all pink. And I was getting ready to change the station. And then both Daniel and I were like, this is good. But we're not sure what we're looking at right now or what they're or what's going on. But we were so intrigued. And then, I looked down, it says Chappell Roan. I didn't know how to say that at that point. I was just like reading the name. And I was like, oh, and then I think my TikTok picked up on the music because then I started seeing her in my algorithm and the rest is history. Because I was like, wait, this is the person. And then I was obsessed.
Yeah, pause. The apps are listening to us. I'm like fully convinced because you listen to something somewhere else or someone mentions something and then it's all over your feed. So I'm behind that.
People salute. So that's how I discovered Chappell. I remember when we were out dancing a couple weeks ago. We were talking about Chappell because again, I'm obsessed. So I felt the need to evangelize. And we were like, yeah, a friend of mine, we knew about her in last year. So tell me more about that. Cause I was like, oh, of course, Chelsea knew before me. Cause now, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was like, when did I first listen to her? So I searched my texts and I found it was October 25th of 2023. I had texted my friend Nick and was like, oh, have you been listening to Chappell Roan? I think you'd really like her. And then he was like, yeah, actually, I played her when we were in the car together earlier this month. So we both started listening to her sometime in October. Apparently, I heard her in his car, but sometime within October, she came up on one of the Spotify playlists. That's how it happens for me. And then immediately, I don't remember which song it was, but immediately after hearing like whatever song came up on the playlist, I was like, oh, who's this? This is fun. And then immediately just became obsessed with her album and then was playing that really like all late fall into the winter. And I do remember having like a game night with people over and like also evangelizing and be like, do you guys know Chappell Roan? I'm playing her album right now. Like, this is it. It's so fun kind of thing. It was like in between the sad Noah Khan. I was like,
classic.
Roan was my like party dance through the fall and winter.
So just also realizing for those of you who are like, what are you even saying? So today we will be doing a deep dive into Chappell Roan. She is a 26-year-old singer-songwriter of the synth pop, dark pop genre, apparently according to Google, which just means they use a lot of synths, drum machines, etc. to replace instruments. But some of the songs I definitely hear, live instruments. So I think it just depends. But also within the genre of dark pop, which is exploring like heartbreak, depression, and loneliness, which you'll hear a lot as well. But her stage name is Chappell Roan. So Chappell Roan, Roan. And I remember when I saw the name for the first time on the Coachella live stream, I'm like, what? Like, names that you're just like, it's not hard to say, but I'm confused. Like, what? So anyway, apparently her grandpa's last name was Chappell, and his favorite song was The Strawberry Roan, which I've never even heard of. So apparently that's kind of how she came up with it. But she's from Missouri, Midwest to best. She's a queer white woman, also diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I had no idea. For a little more context, she was signed to Atlantic Records when she was 17. She released her EP in 2017. So, God, I can't do math super quickly, but years ago at this point. Moved to LA in 2018. Apparently, that's when she connected with the producer named Dan Negro. Or Negro. Oh no, I'm Black, so Negro came to mind, but we'll get to that later. She was dropped by her label in 2020. But the Dan person she connected to, he actually worked on Olivia Rodrigo's Driver's License, which was the song of 2021 for some people. And so that same producers who Chappell connected with when she moved back out to LA, which I just think was super strategic for her to be successful. So because of that kind of Olivia Rodrigo connection, Chappell got to open for Olivia for a few shows of her Guts tour this year. And apparently after opening for her, you saw her Billboard chart stats bump up 32%. So I think I remember, Chelsea, when we were talking last week, you're like, I didn't know Chappell before. What is happening? Like, what contributed to her all of a sudden being played in bars and having like talks on YouTube with Elton John? And I mean, even having a tiny desk, which you should check out. It's dope. And I'm not saying all that went to her opening for Olivia Rodrigo, but I just think, Olivia has like thousands and thousands of people in these stadiums. So it definitely helped with the exposure.
Yeah. I had texted Nick sometime in April and was like, what happened? She's all over my feed now. And we were talking about her 6 months ago. I was like, there had to have been some event that I don't know about. And it was definitely that tour. And then yeah, I heard she like dipped out of the tour earlier, like took a break from it in order to do Coachella, and like phenomenal decision because that also just skyrocketed so much.
Yeah, no, and I guess that's a great point too, because she opened for Olivia before and then Coachella. And I learned about her from Coachella. So I'm sure tons of other people did. And again, her performance was incredible there. You can see some of the clips on YouTube as well. I checked her Instagram following because that also gives you like a kind of barometer for how popular people are. And she has 1.6 million followers. So I was like, okay, definitely famous, but could be much more well known. They're like mom influencers who've got like 3 million followers, So I'm excited to kind of see her trajectory and how things kind of evolve. But is there anything else kind of just about her that interests you or that you kind of want to mention?
Yeah, so much. Yeah, just commenting on some of the things you already shared. I've heard her describe her genre as slumber party pop. And I think that's like perfect. Of just like it's so dancey and boppy, even when you're like singing about sad things, you're like, but I just feel like having a little slumber party with my girls over this song, of like, for sure. She also, before she opened for Olivia Rodrigo, I don't know if it was like a year or 2 years ago at this point, she opened for Fletcher, which is an artist that's really big in the queer community. So I feel like that also like helped her kind of take off specifically like within the queer community before kind of getting into the bigger pop community maybe. So I feel like that was maybe how she ended up on my like Spotify playlist, is like she was starting to take off in that. Also, okay, so recently I listened to NPR, and there's a show called Wait Wait Don't Tell Me that's like a little game show that airs every weekend, and she was on there in May. And it was the first time that I heard her kind of talk about her drag persona, Chappell Roan, and was like acknowledging that it's pretty exhausting to constantly be in this like drag persona. And then they asked her, like, oh, well, how do you like deal with that? Because obviously you're taking off and like really busy right now. And she was like, oh, I just go home and scream into a pillow and then take off all my makeup. And I'm like, relatable. Like, what? Like having all of this success like come out of nowhere. I'm so happy for her, and I really hope she's just, yeah, taking care of herself. I know she's like going back to Missouri at times and like spending time with her family and taking a break from LA. And I also heard her say like she was really pleasantly surprised with the reception from her hometown. Like she's from a town in Missouri that had like 6,000 people, and like she was convinced she was like the only queer person there, kind of thing, of like such a small town Midwest vibe. And she said when she goes back, like she was like, I don't know, I was ready for them to like kick me out of the town. But now all of the like little baby queers who are still there, like, older people who are like there who maybe like weren't so open, are all like showing out for her and going to all of her shows. And I'm just so happy for her. I think she's doing great.
No, I see the Midwest like obsession because I've seen, again, TikTok, so many of her local concerts for the current tour she's on, just like in Columbus, Ohio, and in Missouri, and other places where people are like scream crying her songs. And again, it makes me hype for her, but there is also, I don't know how real this is. I feel like everything on TikTok needs to be taken with a grain of salt if it is a quote. But I did see this quote from her that was like, one day I was on the phone talking to my therapist just about adjusting to fame and how it was kind of getting to me. And then during that phone call, someone walks up to me and says, are you Chappell Roan? And she's like, yeah, kind of like smiles, does the thing, they leave, and then she's just like, this is what I'm talking about. I'm adjusting to people knowing who I am. I'm not used to it. And so that's exciting, but also kind of, I don't know, tragic. I feel like I was talking to Dan a little bit before this. It's like we don't really talk about that transition people go through from I'm just doing this because I love it to I'm doing it because I love it. Now everyone else loves it and expects it from me. And now I kind of have to be this figure. Kind of going back to how we knew about Chappell's, I thought the past, month, 2 months that I was like, I felt cool. I would bring her name up. I'm actually not sure what her pronouns are, but I'll bring their name up to people. And I'm just like, yeah, I know Chappell, blah, blah, blah. And then at first I thought it was cool until when I was listening to her most recent album, most recent release, The Rise and Fall of the Midwest Princess. I saw, oh, okay, there are songs from here that were also singles of hers from like 2020, 2022, 2023. And I was like, oh, okay. So the most recent release is a compilation of singles and other songs that were packaged and then re-released this year, but re-released last year. No, re-released this year. But or from different times of her career. So did you know that?
I did know that some of them, like I know that Pink Pony Club like came out a while ago. Not that I was like listening to it a while ago, but the I also don't know the Dan guy's last name, but I know that when she was working with Dan, like he helped with Pink Pony Club and like all that stuff, and she wasn't really taking off yet. Also, I know that she left high school a year early, like she graduated a year early in order to like go out to LA to do all of this, and then got dropped by her label, and it's like so tragic, but she decided to give it another go. And I learned this on TikTok, so take it for what it is, but I'm believing it's true that Dan started his own like label or like producing company, I don't know, whatever, to produce this album. He was like, this needs to come out. And so that's how this album like came to be. He was like, no, I've like worked with you on this. I believe in you. I know you're gonna like take off.
She's independent, right?
Well, so yeah, I don't know, whatever thing. I know that Dan like started his own thing in order to like help her outside of the label that they were on together. Cause yeah, since Dan also produced Olivia Rodrigo's stuff, Chappell Roan's on like the background vocals on some of Olivia Rodrigo's like songs and stuff. It seems like they've had a fun like little coming up together of like been really friendly with each other. So it's fun.
It's funny. I did see her quote in an interview that she really gets along with Olivia and loves her. And I hate to pit women against women, but Chappell Roan every day of the week. I think her artistry is packaged
Yeah.
so well and she sells it so well. Anyway, we can get into that a bit, but it's kind of looking up her Billboard climbing, like her Billboard charts and if her songs are on there and kind of what that's looking like. And for those who don't know, there is a weekly chart published by Billboard magazine. It ranks the most popular songs in the United States across all genres. It's like a combination of sales, radio airplay, streaming data, yada, yada. And so I'm like, okay, I heard someone on TikTok talk about Chappell being on there. So I was like, okay, what number is she? Blah, blah, blah. And so it looks like her most recent single, Good Luck Babe, charted and is currently charting. I checked it, I think last night. It's still number 31. So ahead of her, I mean, you've got like Billie Eilish's record, you've still got some Taylor Swift tracks and Post Malone, blah, blah, blah. But still, the fact that her song has been there and it's been riding there. And I feel like she's only gaining in popularity. So I'm really excited and hopeful that she'll keep climbing the Billboard charts, that her other songs, which are on the chart. I didn't look past, I think, 50, but her other songs are actually, they may not be in the 100, but I think they may still be somewhere. So anyway, wanted to kind of move on and talk about, so cool, we got some context to who she is, her genre, how we heard about her, blah, blah, blah. Why do we care? Why do we feel connected to her? And what kind of like attracts you to her whole larger than life persona?
Well, first, I feel like first thing that we have to mention is just her vocals, like her voice alone. I've seen so many like reaction videos on TikTok of like people listening to her songs for the first time, like those people that will like listen that know like the depth of like the artistry that goes behind a song or whatever. And it's just so fun to see so many people just appreciate like her as an artist, whether you're like a super fan of her and like understand her persona or, you know, like really vibe with her music. Like, I feel like you just baseline can really like respect her as an artist. She's just so good. Her voice is amazing. I love the slumber party pop stuff. I feel like that's what I want. It's just a nice little break. It's, I mean, HOTTOGO, like it's dancey, it's poppy. Feminine Nonanon is another one that's like, it's, you just have to get up and dance. It's so good. And it just like picks up the mood, I feel like. I also just feel like there's just never enough like queer pop bops. And I just really respect her pronouns are she, her, and she
Oh,
does identify as a lesbian. But it's so fun because I feel like she just is so loving of the queer community as a whole. Like she hires drag queens, local drag queens at her shows to like open for her. Her lyrics are like pretty fluid. As someone who identifies as bi, there's like lyrics of like, oh, I want to kiss your boyfriend, I want to kiss your girlfriend, like stuff in there that's like this is just fun. It's just like fun. It's playful. Yeah, I just love it. And then we can't, go without saying that she's from the Midwest. We're all rooting for a little Midwest underdog. I feel like she comes off so relatable. I feel like she's someone who like, yeah, didn't see her fame coming as quickly as it did. And she just seems like really humble, relatable. I just want to see her enjoy life and keep making whatever music she wants to make.
no, for sure. And for those who don't know, Chelsea is from the Midwest, just like me. We actually met at our Midwestern college. So definitely, part of that Midwest princess crew. So I completely agree. I mean, I feel like I'm the sort of person who can bond with anyone with a strong sense of self. I always tell people that my parents said when I was younger, I'd just walk into a room and I would just kind of pause, looking like I was taking it all in. And I feel like I still have that vibe today, just in a little different way. I'm always judging you, you just don't know, but in a way that just helps me respond most effectively to you, not in a way that makes me, you know, think little of you or something. But all that to say, to me, Chappell is so interesting because I feel like I can pick up on her authenticity immediately. She, especially in interviews and when she's not in her drag persona, it seems like she's talking directly to you. It doesn't seem like she has any sort of front that she's putting on. She just seems super genuine, super down to earth. And I really love that. I love writers who are also singers, who are also performers. There's something about that triad when people know how to do every single one of those things. I love that her lyrics tell a story. Those are my favorite kind of songs where you can kind of picture exactly what's going on, exactly who's there, why, and you can really visualize it, whether it's raunchy or awkward or sad, but in how she delivers the lyrics, it evokes empathy and sympathy, familiarity and warmth. You're just attracted to it. I'm attracted to it. I really feel like her character is interesting. Before I even read more background about her character, I remember saying to Dano, I'm like, whatever role she's playing, she is all in. She's so all into it. And I love how she plays it. So for those who don't know, and again, those who haven't seen her, when she performs, she's in drag. So she kind of gives off this like sensual, seductive, flamboyant, but fun, quirky, confident, larger than life character. It's not who she actually is, as Chelsea and I have been saying. And in an interview last year with Missouri's Chamber of Commerce and Tourism, which is so cute that she's taking that interview. Again, it was last year, we'll see, but she's, down home gal. She literally said, I love throwing craft night at my house, like once or twice a week and inviting people over to make hot cocoa. I'm really into wholesome things. She went on in that interview to talk about how she's, celibate by choice in this time of her life, how she drinks alcohol maybe once or twice a year. And then she kind of reiterates that idea of I'm really into wholesome things. When you hear that sentence, and then you see her perform and read the lyrics to these songs, not the thought you would probably immediately think is wholesome, but I just love it. I love the duality. I love the range. And again, she actually said when she was younger and kind of going on this journey of stardom, which again, I guess she didn't intentionally pursue, but she did want to be in the entertainment industry. She wanted to be an actress. Her whole goal was to be acting. But then she uploaded videos of her singing, and then they kind of took off and she wasn't expecting it. So I think the whole persona she puts on is perfect for that background of really intending to be an actor. Because even if for those who haven't seen her Tiny Desk, it's just hilarious because you can tell she's just acting in it. And I feel like I've heard in other interviews of people who have personas as their character, it's kind of not easier, but gives you a little more confidence because you're not selling yourself, you're selling the person you're being. So I don't know.
Yeah, I also heard that I think she said in some interview of like she grew up in a pretty like conservative Christian household. She only listened to Christian music. Like it wasn't until like someone at her school was like, "Have you heard Kesha before? Like, we're all obsessed with Kesha." And she like went home and was like, "Who's Kesha?" And then she was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed. Like, this is so fun, blah, blah, blah." And then in other interviews, she was like, "Oh, I was never a Tumblr girl. And I feel like I really missed out because I would have thrived on Tumblr." But she was like, "But one way or another, I ended up like listening to Lana Del Rey and smoking cigarettes on my porch. So we all ended up where we needed to end up." And I just love that so much of like, yeah, she's from this small town. Like, I feel like the drag performance is like, and drag persona is like a way of like really just unleashing all of the stuff that maybe she like couldn't fully express, or is like, yeah, not totally her, but it's fun and like she wants to act it out and all of that. And what a fun way to do it. And like in that same interview where she was like, "Oh yeah, I go home and scream into a pillow afterwards," or whatever. And then she's like, "And then turn on Drag Race." Like she's just, it's just a fun community to be a part of and like fun way to present yourself, I feel like.
Yeah, and she kills it, and it looks like it's genuine for her, so can't argue with it. So, when we think about pop culture and artists who get big and where they're from, I just feel like the Midwest needs to get more recognition for the people that it breeds, like Michael Jackson from Gary, and then for Detroit, Chance the Rapper from Chicago, John Legend, Ohio, Mark Ruffalo, Wisconsin. I could literally go on and on. Betty White, Judy Garland. But the point is,
Prince.
France, yeah. And I feel like the perception of the Midwest isn't like where world famous entertainers are born, but it's true. So I don't know. I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that. I feel like when I was in LA and I would tell people I was from Indiana, some of the reactions, mostly from the California natives, are like, "Oh, wow." But it's like some of the artists you adore are from
Yeah.
more where I'm from than where you're from, whatever. So I don't know if it's more here than there, but just an interesting.
Yeah, I think that is interesting. I usually don't look up like where an artist is from, but when I find out that they're from the Midwest, I'm like, "Oh, I'm claiming you as like from my hometown," even though Missouri is not anywhere near Indiana, like, or Indianapolis, it's not like we were neighbors or something, but just being from that area of like in the Midwest, I feel like there is just something of like, oh, we had probably some similarities in the way that we grew up if you're just in that region. And that's fun to see someone kind of take off and thrive.
No, and that's what I love too. Just I feel like the Midwestern connection, like almost the fact that we can relate with someone who's from someplace that feels so insignificant kind of gives you an immediate bond. Like they're from Missouri. Wait, really? Again, like you said, even though I think we're like a 6 hour drive, it's not like we're neighbors, but it just feels like, oh, she can relate to me because that is her experience. For her to also be taking off and singing about some of that experience, which in some of her songs she will reference, being back home and what that's like, it makes me connect to it, especially having just moved to California and moved back home, and her in some of her songs talking about the transition from being in LA and the Midwest really connected with that too.
Yeah. Not from the Midwest, but I feel like it's also to me in my mind like related to Noah Kahan's success of like being from the middle of nowhere, Vermont, of like, so now I live in Boston in New England, and like I feel like everyone here is just like, yeah, like little New England town, like take off, thrive, like everyone's rooting for him. His shows, like he sold out everywhere. Anywhere in New England is like within seconds of it going live. He sold out Fenway 2 nights this summer. It's insane. But anyway, of like I feel like people also just like seeing someone from a small town like kind of take off of, especially as they're so open about kind of their upbringing, where they're coming from. You're just like easy to relate to, wanting to see them be successful.
For sure. And Chappell's also on tour currently right now in the US. She's got a handful more festivals and venues to play before it looks like she's going international for a little bit. But since she's still in, the beginnings of her career in terms of really taking off at a mass scale, where do you see her career kind of going and evolving?
That's interesting. I feel like she seems so high up right now. I think maybe just from where she started, I'm like, where else is there to go? But
True.
but yeah, I could definitely see, going on her own tours continuously, selling out big shows. I mean, she was here in Boston for Boston Calling. She had the biggest show of Boston Calling
Yes,
over
I saw
the headliner of like, she wasn't a headliner at all, but the crowd that showed up, like people were like, I'm nervous. This crowd is way bigger than like anyone anticipated. But everyone was just so thrilled, you know, just to see her and be able to do HOTTOGO all in a crowd of thousands of people.
Oh my God.
So fun.
Okay, so that's perfect. I was going to ask, are there any songs you would recommend for folks who have never heard of Chapel before? Because again, you and I feel like we consume a lot of queer content because that's like content we're into and we see that comes to our table. A lot of different people, I feel like that they could or could not just naturally come across Chapel. So I would recommend, I mean, these are just kind of her biggest hits right now, are HOTTOGO, Hot to Go. Jeez, why am I didn't write these down. I should have. Probably just because I'm listening to everything on repeat.
Yeah, exactly. Also, Good Luck Babe is her
Oh,
latest
God.
single. That one is also, I think, her number one right now, at least on Spotify. Casual is another big one. Of my favorites, I mean, if you're going down the rabbit hole, you just listen to the whole album. But the first song on the album, Phenomenon, is like my other bop. I feel like it's a really similar vibe to HOTTOGO. Also, I love that we're spelling it out because that's how she does it in the chorus.
Yeah. Oh, it's hot to go.
It is just hot to go. And then Super Graphic Ultra Modern Girl is the other one that I like had saved and was listening on repeat. So just go down the rabbit hole. It's not that far of a rabbit hole to go. You're catching her, you're listening to this, you haven't listened to her, you're catching it fairly early. And in
Yeah.
terms of like, you have one album to consume and have fun playing that on repeat. So
Exactly. That's what I was going to tell people. You're not super late. We're just earlier and better than you. That's all. Anyway, Chelsea, thank you so much for the chat. We love Chappell Roan. I love Chelsea. So happy to have you on. You got to be back. And yeah, any parting words for the listeners?
just have fun, find your summer bops, enjoy it. You know, with so much going on in the world, I feel like we just need little dance breaks. Find your dance break, whether it's Chappell Roan or something else, and enjoy the summer. And I have loved being on the podcast, so please have me back.
Will do. Well, you heard it here first. Love you guys. All right, let's move on.